Ismado Wakusu family. This is Ishmael Bey coming back at you. Just wanted to finish up what we were talking about yesterday. We did a show with Dr. Mustafa Ansari. I want to thank Dr. Ansari for being able to have me on yesterday, as well as Dr. Clyde Winters, who did a tremendous presentation yesterday. The video should be uploaded sometime today. And we were having technical difficulties on my part of the presentation, so I wanted, of course, make my word bond and to present my information that was pertaining to the actual show yesterday. So my part of the show was dealing with the reclassified genocide attempt of the Afro-Descendant nation, the Moors in America. Really just highlighting the Moorish aspects of the Afro-Descendant nation historically, and where we actually kind of fit in as one of those, that part of that history. Now, of course, our specialty is tying in the entire amount of us, 45 million of us, in the Afro-Descendant nation. But specifically, there's a Moorish aspect of that 45 million people. So, of course, you know, nobody should go around even thinking for a moment that all of us are Moors. I think that's a misinformation for sure. But there are aspects of us that are definitely Moorish Americans. And with that being stated, we do have a part of the Afro-Descendant nation. Now, basically, the Afro-Descendant nation, you can get that information by, number one, being a citizen or getting the information. You can contact Dr. Mustafa Ansari. We also work, of course, with, and can never thank enough, the works of attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, the new Black Panther Party, Chairman Asim Nzinga, and all the sisters and brothers that are actually along with us. So far, our citizenship is just growing. I mean, we're up to almost 6,000 citizens of the Afro-Descendant nation. So what we're going to focus on right now is part of the Moorish aspect of the history. Just talking, that's all. Just talking and presenting the information. So, you know, I just did, though, is the phrase that I use, and just presenting the information. And so that's what we're going to do. So, reclassified genocide attempt of the Afro-Descendant nation. The question is asked, has the United States acknowledged the American slaves as indigenous owners of this land, and can you prove it? I'm a raw squad up. Of course I can. It's what I do. And you know, part of that's what we're going to do. So part of that history is what we're breaking down is C.J. Ingersoll, chairman of the Committee on Foreign Relations in the House, 3rd day of February 1845. What this does is this helps lay the premise of kind of the framework of what we're dealing with, and putting a foundation behind it. So as you kind of pull up that history, or you just go to the page itself, what you're seeing is that it states, again, you can pull it up on the portal to Texas history. Again, it's the portal to Texas history. It states, let's get here, the stupendous deserts between the Nueces and the Bravo rivers are the natural boundaries between the Anglo-Saxons and the Mauritanian races. Again, Mauritanian races. We're talking about various. When you talk about races, that's with the S on the back. How do you go, man? Y'all, there's so much of the history that's not even being told, that if y'all don't even understand the whole core premise, if your mind is already made up that it don't exist, all this is going to be over your head. So the Nueces and the Bravos rivers, we're talking about the area of Texas, just to let you know. The natural boundaries between the Anglo-Saxons and the Mauritanian races. There ends the valley of the where there Mexico begins, right? Thence beyond the Bravo begins the Moorish people and their Indian associates. There's a difference. Moorish people and the Indian associates. That's like the Indians are like your Robin, your Batman. They're like, I don't want to say they're like your flunkies, but they a little lesser. They are a different status. So, you know, to whom Mexico properly belongs and should not cross into the vast desert if they could. So when they talk about the Mauritania, I mean, they actually have the whole location of Mauritania. You know, when they talk about Mauritanian, just look at the word Mauritania. You know, Tania means land. Moor is the people, so land of the Moors. And they're talking about where Mexico, we're talking about when, quote unquote, Mexico was going from the Mexico that you know, covering California, covering Texas, covering Arizona, covering New Mexico, up to the Rocky Mountains, up near, all the way going all the way up to near Oregon. All of that's Mauritania. All that territory. And there's a specific role that Texas played in all of that, into reestablishing the boundaries, as well as making sure that the people became citizens of Mexico and then United States. But they were breaking up the Moorish Empire. And we're talking about the 19th century when this happened. So no, when people say that the Moorish Empire was ancient, it wasn't ancient at all. The Moorish Empire was spread and acknowledged here up into the 19th century. So yeah, that's, let's get it. Also keep in mind, man, that the war that took place on us, let's get it in. Andrew Jackson was a citizen of Spain. Andrew Jackson was not a U.S. citizen, bro. These are lies that they tell you. They tell you these lies. Here it is. You can pull it up. Robert Remini, Tennessee Historical Quarterly, Volume 45, Number 1, Spring 1995, page 2 to 15. You can pull it up. You read it yourself. Andrew Jackson takes an oath to Spain. Here it is. You got to be able to see this for yourself, and know and understand your history. Andrew Jackson takes the oath of Spain. He was a Spanish citizen. So if he's a Spanish citizen, then that means what? That he was waging war on what kind of African people? If he's a citizen, Moors, hello? Use common sense, bro. He's waging war on Moors. Also, since he was a citizen of Spain and he never renounced his citizenship to Spain, that means that the treaties that he was signing and the Trail of Tears and the robbing of the people, that's all null and void. You have a legal premise to this. You have to understand where you fit in as an Afro-Descendant. When you're an Afro-Descendant, you have to understand that you have legal rights that are respected on the world stage. And with those legal rights, you're supposed to move out as a nation. So anyways, y'all just so far behind. Anyways, let's deal with it. The war in Texas. Benjamin Lundy. Excerpt of an exhibitionist explanation of the cause of the Texas Revolution. William Lundy was one of those, like a Quaker dude. He was like an abolitionist. And a part of his information here was that he was quoting a U.S. president. And by him quoting that U.S. president, what he was saying was that he was quoting President John Quincy Adams as a part of Lundy's explanation. And this is the one that's quoted all the time. What is the temper of feelings between the component parts of your own southern population, between your Anglo-Saxon, Norman French, and Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri, between them all and the Indian savage, the original possessor of the land, from which you and I are scourging him already back to the foot of the Rocky Mountains? What between them and all of the American Negro of African origin whom they are holding in cruel bondage? John Quincy Adams, delivered in the House of Representatives of the United States, December 25th, 1835. So again, we're talking about John Quincy Adams delivering this information. Let's break it down. Let's get into it. The temper feelings between the component parts of your own southern population, Anglo-Saxon, and the Moorish Spanish inhabitants. They don't even tell you about the Moors that inhabited Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri. And the premise of this whole speech that John Quincy Adams has given is dealing with like settlers that and inhabitants of Georgia and Alabama. They don't tell you about the Moors of Alabama. They don't tell you about the Moors of Georgia. You know, my family's part of their hometown is Andalusia, Alabama, named after the Moors and the Spaniards. Andalusia, Alabama is still there today. You know, we got I think that basketball player, his name got like about 7-8 rings. Robert Ory, he from Andalusia, Alabama. That's our family hometown. So they don't even tell you about this history, bro. Y'all is so far behind, and getting so much misinformation even from people with a fez on many times. So these Moors from Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, and again, they separate you between them all and the Indian savage, the original possessor of the lands from which you and I are scourging him already to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. All the way to the Rocky Mountains. Man, let's talk about it. Okay. So this is Lundy who's quoting John Quincy Adams, right? But the key is this. You got to go to the source. If you're not going to the source, you still not going to get to the bottom of it. So you got to go farther and farther down the rabbit hole. That's what we're going to do, yo. Check it. What we do is we go to the quote, you know. The key part of research is, man, going and getting the first-hand documentation, not just taking a word for it. Because that's where the lies are. You know, you got to uncover that. So let's look at the details on this, though. So again, this is Lundy who's quoting John Quincy Adams, right? In fact, don't even take my word for it. We're going to pull up, Lundy's excerpt of kind of the way that he's breaking it down. Yeah, so as we go here to the document itself, it's the War in Texas of Benjamin Lundy, excerpt of an abolitionist explanation in the cause of the Texas Revolution. It's able to be pulled up. So as you go here, these are all, Lundy's words on here, and then he goes into the quote of President John Quincy Adams, right? Okay, so we go down here, go right to third page, and this is the part of him while he's quoting John Quincy Adams. He talks about the part we were just going over. What is the temper of feelings between the component parts of your own southern population, between your Anglo-Saxon, Norman French, and Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri, between them all and the Indian savage, the original possessor of the land from which you and I are scourging him, already back to the foots of the Rocky Mountains? What between them all and the American Negro of African origin, whom they are holding in cruel bondage, are those elements of harmony, concord, etc., right? So that's the quote from the document. So the key is to go back to the original source. Since he's quoting John Quincy Adams, don't just take his word for it. You go back to the first-hand document. So you go to the Columbia University Data Bank, Columbia University in the city of New York, the libraries, right? You go to the libraries, which is where the documents are, right? And as you go in here, John Quincy Adams, I know it looks kind of raggedy, but these are old documents, right? Joint resolutions for distributing rations to the distressed fugitives from Indian hostilities in the states of Alabama and Georgia, as we had discussed, delivered in the House of Representatives Wednesday, May 25th, 1836. Right? Okay. So as you go here and pulling up the first-hand document, you read this. The component parts of your own southern, let's pull this joint up here. Here it is. Okay, let's get this joint over here. Then let's pull this over here. Okay. The component parts of your own southern population in between your Anglo-Saxon, Norman, French, and Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri, between them all and the Indian savage, the original possessor of the land from which you are now scourging him from already back to the foot of the Rocky Mountains. What between them all and the Native American Negro of African origin, whom they are holding in cruel bondage? Are these elements of harm? Hold on a minute. So something got added in there. Something's in there that got taken out. What between them all and the Native American Negro of African origin? Native American Negro of wait a minute. Now let's go back to his version of this. Hold on a minute. What the tempered feelings between the component parts of your own southern population, between your Anglo-Saxon, Norman, French, and Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri, between them all and the Indian savage, original possessor of the land from which you and I are scourging him already back to the foots of the Rocky Mountains? What between them all and the American Negro of African origin? Wait, there's a word missing here. And the American Negro of African origin. Wait, he's quoting John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams said, between them all and the Native American Negro of African origin, whom they are holding in cruel bondage. So John Quincy Adams is saying that it's the Native Americans that are from Africa that came over in earlier migrations, but they're native here. And to make no mistake about it, he's explaining that they're the ones who are being held in cruel bondage, meaning on them plantations. Let's talk about it. People say you can't say that you native and black. You can't prove that you native and black. But I just did though. John Quincy Adams, president, just did though. Let's talk about it. Anyways. All right. Next question is, where in the FBI wire, Alabama Republican called black casino customers Aborigines? Let's talk about it. All right. Where FBI called black casino customers Aborigines. Why did he say that? Do we even know the context? This is the fascinating part of this. When he called the black casino customers Aborigines, it was the Negroes, the NAACP, local Alabama groups, and these other black groups. They were the ones demanding him to come forward and apologize for calling them Aborigines. They were offended that he called them Aborigines. They don't even know the context in which he was using the term Aborigines, which the public generally doesn't even know. He was wearing an FBI wire and didn't even know that he was being recorded because somebody was wearing a wire. And he was talking to another Republican lawmaker who looked in the casino and saw all the black natives there. And he said, the other Republican lawmaker said, those are your Indians. This devil here said, no. They're not Indians. They're Aborigines. Let's talk about it. Okay. Here it is. Beeson and two other Republican legislators were joking about economic development in a predominantly black green country and the customers of the Green Track Casino. The Associated Press reports. That's y'all's Indians, one Republican said. They're Aborigines, "But they're not Indians," replied Senator Beeson. The transcript was read Wednesday in the federal trial of casino owner Milton McGregor. Just as the documents we've been proving, there are various Mauritanian races. The Indians are associates. The Aborigines are the black natives. And then they were mixed later on with other later migrations of African people, but there were already black natives that were here. These are the facts. So when we talk about as Afro-Descendants, do we have land rights? Absolutely, we have land rights. It's proven by presidents. It's proven by senators. It's proven by these people. You just don't know it. But you have an invitation now to create your government. And as you create your government, you then become tribes. This is what we're working on right now. So let's talk about more of that Moorish history, shall we? In fact, let's deal with the description of what those Moors look like. You know, we have to find out, because we don't want somebody going around saying, you know, oh, no, those are just some Arabs running around with some straight hair and running around, you know, super cat looking. No. Let's see. Louisiana historic and cultural vistas. What may slaves in colonial Louisiana have looked like? Let's talk about it. 2/3 of slaves in 1790 Saint Dominique were born on the African continent and were almost all Negres. At the end of the 19th century, the Portuguese began introducing Negres in the Americas. End of the 15th century, who were originally from around present-day Senegal, which included Moor, reminded us a small number of Arabs who lived along the Senegal River. Let's see what we got here. But the Moors may not have been Arabs in the way that many people think of Arabs phenotypically today. For example, Cornelius Francis de Pauw, a Dutch philosopher, geographer, and diplomat at the court of Frederick the Great of Prussia, noted in his 1772 tome that the Moors were negre-like, with kinky hair, black as soot, or ashy black. A century later, Filippo Sassetti observed Moors whose complexion at the halfway point between dark olive-hued gypsy and black-skinned African. So first-hand accounts of the Moors seem to share a pattern that the Moors were overwhelmingly of black and brown complexions. You can finish reading about the rest of its slaves, the Moor, the Senegalese, our brothers and sisters, the Wolof, the Bambara, the Mandingos. Come on, talk to me. Ivory Coast. Stop playing with me. Louisiana. Stop playing. Let's get it in. Next point. Alright, back at it. Talk to me. We're talking about the traces of Moorish influence on Spain surviving in New Mexico. Again, this is a recent article. We're talking about July 15, 2016. Traces of Moorish influence in Spain. You got to understand that they're, you know, the information they try to pull a fast one over on you in order to hide their history. I already proved that they don't tell you about the Moors that are in New Mexico, Arizona. All this history right here, man. Stop it. Okay, so goes here. So we're talking about the Moorish traces in Spain, on Spain, survive in New Mexico. Mark Simmons, whoever he is, liar, whoever, typical. The first conquistadors in the New World were instructed by the Spanish king to keep a lookout for mosques and Muslim priests. When Cortez conquered the Aztecs, he reported to his sovereign in Spain. This is what Cortez reported back. We discovered many mosques, which they have in these parts. Now, this is what Cortez said. Cortez said, we discovered many mosques, which they have in these parts. Now, this is what Mark Simmons says. By mosque, Cortez meant the huge stone temples of the Aztec Indians. Of course, the building had nothing to do with Islam. That's his words. Now let's see who's gonna know more about what a mosque looked like. Mark Simmons or Cortez? Cortez, being from Spain, has been under Moorish rule for 700 years. Firsthand knowing what Moors look like, firsthand knowing what Moors rules are, first also knowing the comparison of what a church is because they were Christians. So who's going to be more of an expert of knowing what a mosque looked like? Cortez, who says that he saw the mosque when he got here, or Mark Simmons? Anyways, let's continue on. He says, Mark Simmons, nothing to do with Islam. Still, Spaniards continued making this mistake to the end of the 16th century. An example comes from the Castellano de Sosa expedition, 1591, during his ramble through New Mexico. At the Jacona Pueblo West Pajico, the newcomers observe a big round house containing many idols. It sat in the center of the plaza, center of the large plaza. We understood the structure to be a mosque. Today, buildings like this are called kaivas. That's Mark's words. Again, Castellano knows what a mosque looks like. He's from Spain. Under 700 years of Moorish rule. They know exactly what they're talking about. Not this white boy who's not, number one, telling you anything about this being, that area being Mauritania, right? We just unveiled the documents. Is Simmons telling you about that? Nope. Spanish confusion in this matter was grounded in centuries of medieval warfare between Christians and Muslims on the Iberian Peninsula. Actually, it's not any confusion at all. It's the expertise. They know exactly what it is. So, in fact, you can go to, you look at the indigenous tribes of New Mexico, the Zuni, and that was the tribe that Esteban, the Moor, since New Mexico was founded by a Moor, a black African Moor from West Africa. the tribe, the Indian tribe, even today, they still wear the crescent moon. So yeah, the Moorish influence, man, it's real. In New Mexico, in Texas, in Arizona, man, Arizona, let's get it. Arizona ranch roots leads back to Moors. Arizona, back to Moors. What? Come on. On my Arizona road map, there's a large tract of land northwest of Prescott, marked to Louise Maria Barker Grant. Can you tell me what that is? That's a question that a person asks as they rolling down the road. They go through the history. Luis Maria Cabaza de Barca was a descendant of Alvar Cabaza de Vaca, whose family was ennobled by the Spanish crown in 1212. I'm gonna let that sit out there for a minute. 1212. Moors didn't fall until when? 1492. We talking about 1212 history here. Now, why is something that's going on over there in Spain in 1212 even relevant to Arizona today? Let's get it in. The family started out as ordinary peasant folk named Alhaza, but Martin Alhaza showed the Spanish army trails to help it get around Moor-held mountain passes in Spain. To do so, he marked the route with a cow's skull. The Spanish won a big victory, and Alhaza family was given the name Cabaza de Vaca, head of a cow. I don't know when the family switched to Baka. Anybody who knows a little bit about Spanish knows that the B's and the V's are interchangeable in Spanish language. So in other words, you can be a B's here, you could be a V's there. The B and the V are interchangeable, also sounding the same linguistically. Anyways, Luis Maria Cabaza in Dabarca was given about 500,000 acres of land, most of it in the territory of New Mexico by the King of Spain. If you can tie your family name into land grants that deal with Spain, it actually opens up a whole new reality to you. My family got land grants from Spain. We're talking about in the 1700s. And we still got the documentation that the land grants, which ended up leading into homestead grants, and also a part of the family is a part of Native American tribes in the area, all rooted in the land grants from Spain. So yeah, this family got 500,000 acres of land. Unfortunately for the Dabarcas, Indian depredators, meaning violators, were so severe that the family was driven from the land. After Mexico gained its independence from Spain, it moved new settlers into the Dabarca lands. When the United States, this is the good part, when the United States took over what would become New Mexico, including what would become Arizona territory after the Mexican War, the Dabarca heirs laid claim to their original grant. See, they laid claim to the original grant from 1212, yo, in Spain, yo, to the United States, yo. Considering Dabarca had 19 children, figuring this out gets thorny. After some hemming and hawing and complicated studies of deeds and so on and so forth, they try to make that real vague for you. The U.S. finally agreed to honor the heirs' claims. See how they covered this over. This family got 500,000 acres here in America, and he summed it up as some hemming and hawing and complicated studies and deeds and so on and so forth. This is what they say on here. Nah, man, to hell with that. They proved that there was Afro-Descendants and got that right. The problem was the people living on the Dabarca lands were now U.S. citizens, and the government didn't want to just kick them off. So it offered the Dabarcas a deal. If the family would float its rights to the original property, the government would let it pick 5 other tracts of 100,000 acres each. Hence the Luis Maria Barca Grant Float number 5. 5 pieces, 100,000 acres each. So when we talk about you have rights as Afro-Descendants, you can hem and haw, and you can so on and so forth, and do the same thing as an Afro-Descendant. Let's talk about it. Anyways, man, I'm just gonna cut this one a little bit short. The last thing is just the population of the African descendants. We talk about Brazil, you know, we talk about America, we talk about Cuba, high percentages. And when we talk about, you know, how many of us are over here, you know, we'll break down later on the differences between Afro-Descendants, African descendants, how it all breaks down. Just a part of this series. We'll be coming to your city. Make sure that you sign up, become a citizen, get your rights. We have lawyers, we have international lawyers, we have United Nations. Make sure you support the other Afro-Descendants that are out there. You have the ones who actually was our first representative, which was the Honorable Salis Muhammad. Make sure you support the Honorable Salis Muhammad and their branch of it, also of the Nation of Islam. You know, we're gonna be like taking our trips to Brazil, to South America. I know we have an upcoming conference coming up in November in Hawaii. Yeah, we got Afro-Descendants in Hawaii. We'll be doing the Caribbean. Stay busy, man. We got one coming up. I think it's in September, in Washington D.C. and in New York City. I'm gonna try to attend that one too. So just stay in contact with us. Ishmael Bey, Eastern Facilitator, Afro-Descendant Nation, Sankofa, Wakusu family. I'm out.